only way to verify that would be to allow independent media to go in and report. Well, so you can't bar the media and say, well, you've got to take our word for it, because that isn't very persuasive, is it?
Well, I will add to my brother's comment here. It's not the only media that the television or whatever the mass media you call about. We have nowadays social media. They're the most powerful media in the world at present, especially when you have mobile phones, you have Twitters, you have Facebooks, and news cannot be suppressed. There are many pages we know they're being shut down by the government, and the Bangladeshis at the moment, the biggest prison in the world, the biggest prison cell, is a prison of 56,000 square miles, because there is no freedom of expression, because the freedom of judiciary is, of course, there is not. We have freedom of, we do not have freedom of journalism, freedom of expression of opinion, because you know they've celebrated journalists. Mahmoud Rahman, he was put behind the bar. The law was misapplied. The criminal procedure code, the criminal procedure code, section article clause 114 was misapplied in his case. This man was tortured in his cell. It's widely publicized. Social medias, we have evidences in our possession. Our bloggers, because we have the People's Voice, the organization that I head for bloggers around the world, for people like us, they have supplied us with evidences. And European Convention of Human Rights and the leaders of this European Union should be emphasizing on this, that Bangladesh cannot be allowed, government cannot be allowed to carry on violation after violation of clauses, international civil and political rights violations. It's going on like a stampede. So there is no freedom, but we have evidences, that's the thing. And we cannot be suppressed. And if you go for our groups, like in my Facebook wall as well, you will see people are flaring up with evidences.
The question is, can you have a legitimate democracy that doesn't allow free press? It's really as simple as that.
Yes.
Well, along with the free press, we've got a lot of citizen journalism going on. Like Mafaz said here, there's lots of people with their mobile phones and things like this. But also, can we
confiscated, could get arrested for that, for supplying what the government might say dubious or fabricated information.
Of course, but can we say that it's all accurate information? If every Joe blog is out there on the streets giving you death tolls,
you could. I mean, it wouldn't have the same status as it coming on one of these international news channels.
Well, like if you compare the figures, you can get something from the BBC, for example, which is we know is a verified figure.
We have a better verification process. Let me tell you how. Because, for example, on the night of the 6th, early mornings of 6th of May, I got simultaneously phone calls from 10 different places, 10 different people who do not know themselves, sending me almost a similar kind of video clips from different directions, different angles. So that is a verification as per se. So to say that only BBC or Al Jazeera or your TV channel should be the only platform of verification is not true at all anymore.
But they would reach out to a lot more people.
Yes, I mean,
and I think the government, they can't stop citizen journalists, but they can stop big
again,
institutions.
I must add here as well that it's not a question of how many people were killed. Even in 1952, our language movement, only 5 to 7 people were killed, but we have language movement. We celebrate 21st of February around the world now as a language day. We have 1969, only a handful of people were killed. It's not a question of how many, although we have evidences to corroborate there are many people who were killed. It's a question of principle, it's a question of international morality, rule of law, which have been violated by the present brutal regime.
The government is also arresting bloggers who, you know, some would say are pro-government, who have criticized the Islamic movements in Bangladesh.
That's an absolute eyewash. Because let me tell how eyewash is. The punishment that they were charged with was under Section 99 of the Penal Code, and the highest punishment for that, it's not an ordinary stirring of religious hate under like Religious Hatred Act 2006 here in Britain. It was an eyewash because the punishment for creating circumstances where people, thousands of people would die, the punishment, the responsibility should be enormous, and the crime punishment should be amended, laws should be amended, and we want laws which this kind of criminality in the name of religious so-called freedom of expression, which is a violation, abuse of freedom of expression, should be punished and made accountable.
Mafaz, you were a journalist in Bangladesh previously.
I was, yes.
How have things changed, do you think, since when you worked there? Were things relatively free?
Well, Bangladesh was never free journalism-wise, but the thing is, it was better than what we are seeing now. Even during the Ershad's regime, the military dictator, it was nothing like this. Even like during Ayub Khan's, because I had the unique opportunity to go into the only viable source of information was the Dhaka University News Archive, where I sat down for days together to read archives of newspaper history and the journalism like Ittefaq, Shangram and all that. We have seen they used their liberty much more freely than what we're seeing now. Now we do not have, even Bangladeshi people now in Bangladesh are less informed than about what happened than we are outside the Bangladeshi community are.
Mohammed, how are you getting your news from Bangladesh?
Well, a lot of it is through social media. We're getting it through Facebook, from and I'm just, but that only reaches certain people. Certain people, like now, until recently, I wasn't a particularly sort of active Facebook user. It's only because I can't get news from Bangladesh on any of the international channels.
With your organisation, do you find that the British community are somewhat more versed on this issue than perhaps communities where there aren't Twitter?
My relatives sitting in some remote village in Sylhet are not aware of a lot of these things that are going on, unless they get it from Facebook as well, just like us.
Mafaz, has Bangladesh ever had completely free media, even in the initial days after independence?
No. Bangladesh never had freedom of media, because if you go back to the initial first few years of independence from 1972 onwards, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, the so-called founding father of the country, he throttled the independence of media by having Bakshal, which in fact outlawed all the opposition political parties, opposition journalists. Bakshal is the Bangladesh Cricket Shramik League. That means Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman made one political party rule and disbanded banned all opposition. He declared himself president, leader of the government for the rest of his life, and he also had claims of nepotism. So this freedom was not there during his regime. Then we had Zia Rahman's time. We had considerably better situation Zia Rahman's times, but we have to understand when Zia Rahman took up power, he was also initially a military ruler. So he took the leadership of a country when the country was in a very volatile situation. So probably for the betterment of the country, he had to throttle some sort of censorship there. Then we have Ershad. Obviously, he was a military dictator. He never addressed the situation. Then we have BNP rule, who sang the song of BNP policies. Then we have Awami League again, who are singing the same song of Awami League rule. But the worst thing is the present regime is carrying out a fascist, Maoist-backed anti-theist, not atheist, anti-theist movement to throttle the sentiment, moral values, freedom of expression of the 90% not only of Muslims but also 10% of Hindus. So this situation has been worse in the history of Bangladesh, which cannot be compared to the independence, whatever slight independence of democracy we had in the past.
Do you think it's worse than the Bakshal situation that Sheikh Mujib introduced?
Yes.
It's worse now than it was.
It was.
It's worse because
Sheikh Mujibur Rahman at least did not wage war against Muslims or Islam. But
is that what you're saying that the government of Bangladesh is doing now?
Yes, they have waged war against not only against Islam but also against Muslim. And we should not forget to talk about Islam, to talk about religion. We are not only talking about Islam only. We're talking about the right to have Islam as a religion. So we're talking about freedom of religion here, which is obviously celebrated and accepted by international conventions and treaties and institutions.
Mohammed, very finally, what is your organisation doing for journalists and the media in Bangladesh?
Well, we would like British Bangladeshis who really from a distance to take an interest in Bangladesh, because although we're not involved in any particular political parties, we've all grown up here. We are more British, but with an affinity with Bangladesh. It's been a wake-up call for a lot of us, because to be honest, we're not interested in day-to-day, everyday politics in Bangladesh. We have family there, we want to go there, and maybe every few years. And when you see the kind of turmoil in Bangladesh now, it's really disturbing. It's really disturbing that people... I had a friend who went to Bangladesh, and he got attacked because he happened... he had a beard. And it's bizarre that, this guy is a civil servant. He works for the British government in Whitehall. He doesn't get attacked here, but he gets attacked in Bangladesh, which is outrageous. So I think it's really alarming that we can't freely go and visit the country of our birth or the country where our parents are from. And that, I think, is really bothering us. And when you hear of these bogus trials going on, really, would those trials meet British standards? That we are familiar with. Would they meet international standards? And why not then make the whole process transparent? Why not have international observers? I think the issues in Bangladesh are really simple. I don't know the depth as our colleague here is alluding to, but the issues seem very simple. If you don't have transparency, then it might suggest that you're trying to hide something.
Very quickly, you have friends who are journalists in Bangladesh.
Yes.
What are they saying now?
Oh, well, they are all into, in fact, social media now, because they cannot speak freely, they cannot be journalists freely. So they are using our platform, our social media, People's Voice platform, and everybody tweeting it. But to add just a bit, one line to my brother here, that I'm a British Bangladeshi. My children are British Bangladeshis. Well, they're British, more Bangladeshi than British. They never saw Bangladesh. But I see my own child crying every day because of what's going on. His father is crying. I'm crying. My wife will never go back to Bangladesh probably. But we are all united here, not only as a Bangladeshi, but as a human world community to stand up against this lady Hitler in Bangladesh. Thank you very much.
Well, that neatly brings us to the end of tonight's programme. I want to thank my guest, journalist and blogger Mafaz-al-Islam, and also Muhammad Chowdhury, who campaigns for the British-Bangladeshi Alliance. And thank you both for joining us, and thank you for watching. Remember, you can follow our Twitter conversation on this topic by using the hashtag #BangladeshInCrisis, and you can also watch previous episodes from this series on our YouTube channel, which can be found at www.youtube.com/Islam Channel TV. Join us on Friday to discuss